Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for fitting us into your very busy schedules. I'm pleased to see that we've got quite a lot of people turning up from networks, and a few people that aren't in networks currently, which is interesting. So we'll try and make it as relevant for as many people as possible. Always a difficult task with such a kind of broad subject matter, but my name's Tim Connolly, from founder of ALC Enable. I'll introduce you to the panel in a minute. Unfortunately, Gemma Van Rooyen from Horton International couldn't make it. She's dealing with a sick child, I'm afraid, so she sends her apologies. So just wanted to just a bit of housekeeping, just to say that it is going to be strictly an hour, so we'll finish on the dot of 6 p.m. CET. So I know you're busy, and some of you have got other meetings going on, no doubt. And yeah, just to say, just very quickly, just to introduce myself, I'm founder of ALC Enable. We are the business solutions firm for the executive search industry. So we help executive search firms and networks with their strategy and growth and future-proofing. We've worked with a number of networks over the 21 years we've been around. We've identified and spoken to 45 networks, 45 global networks around the world. Approximately, this might be slightly need to be slightly updated, but it's approximately 2,300 firms we've identified in the world as being part of global networks. So there's obviously lots of opportunities, lots of challenges, and I think in 2022, it seems that the whole of the search industry is transitioning, looking at ways of scaling, growth, future-proofing, and I think in a way, in some ways, it's even more challenging for networks because of the structure of a network, but we'll talk a bit more about that later. So I just want to introduce you to Jose Leon, and maybe you could introduce yourself, Jose, if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for inviting me to join this webinar. My name is Jose Leon. I am based in Madrid, and I have been for more than 20 years in the executive search industry as a practitioner, and 4 of those were as chairman and the CEO of the Amprop network. Now I conduct my activity as an independent consultant based in Madrid, but also covering any other countries, and not only doing executive search, but also organizational consulting, talent management, as well as executive coaching.
Thank you, Jose. And Gray Hollitz, a panel member.
Hi, yeah, I'm Gray Hollett. I partner with Tim actually at ALC Enable. I come from a background actually of strategy consulting and brand strategy consulting, having created strategic brand initiatives for corporations all over the globe. I had my own company for a number of years, of which Boyden was a client, and I subsequently became Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer at Boyden Executive Search. I was there for nearly 14 years, doing work across the spectrum of the business, but very much focused on the brand and the marketing strategy and how to support the partners and the rest of the team across the organization, but also in partnership with the CEO, led the rather significant strategy initiative, business strategy initiative for the firm, and worked on recruitment and acquisition of new partners into the firm and new teams into the firm. And I'm happy to be here today.
Great. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Gray. Forgot to say earlier, there is a chat. Most of you will be familiar with it. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. You can click on that and you can direct message one of the panel members or just put a message in the chat more generally. And we will try and answer any questions that you've got. I'm going to keep an eye on that as a moderator. I've got some people behind the scenes helping with that as well. So we'll try and get through your questions, but no promises because it's quite a broad subject. We actually did a quick survey before this, and we got sort of 11 different questions from people. So we're going to try and answer as much of the concerns, challenges, issues that we can in the time allowed. So just going straight into that, it seems that mostly from us talking to networks and members of networks over the years, that a big reason for joining, of course, is about maximizing cross-border opportunities. I think that's certainly the key reason why a lot of search firms join, and certainly sort of top 3 reason for probably I would say all of them. So I mean, big questions to start with, big challenging questions to start with. But I mean, if I may go to you, Jose, first of all, with all your experience, how do you maximize cross-border opportunities, revenue, and profit? I suppose.
Okay. Well, an easy question to start with. Thank you, Tim. I would say that in order to maximize, you need to take into consideration which one is really the nature and the structure of whatever network you are considering to join. My point here is that if the network is mainly composed of local or domestic firms, it will be really very difficult to get and to develop a pure and a true or globally true cross-border business. The reason being because most of the members will be based on local customers with no chance or little chances of really exporting business and getting searches and projects abroad, and therefore the aggregation of those local firms at the end of the day will provide us, or will deliver a global network, but mainly with many local and domestic businesses. So for me, that is really the key issue to really analyze and to wonder, because again, if you are a local firm and the rest of your members and your colleagues are equally similarly to you, if local firms, at the end of the day will be very difficult to generate cross-border business. In order to do so, I would say that definitely you need to have a strong base of customers, whatever country you are in, that definitely have talent needs abroad. Otherwise, the business and your relationship with them will continue to be very much domestic, and there will be very little chances that you export a global business, or at least international business. And that works both ways. I mean, at the end of the day, you cannot expect to receive a lot of business if you are a locally based firm, and the rest of your members and the rest of your colleagues are equally or have the similar business. No? So even when this is really the challenge of any network, for me, it very much relies with what kind of members do you have. Because again, if most of them are local and domestic, it will be really quite difficult to generate cross-border business. And I think that's something that if you are considering to join the network, you really need to analyze very deeply, to understand the nature, the positioning, the size, and many other aspects of your future colleagues in order to understand how this issue of the cross-border business work. I would say that, in my opinion and based on my experience, many firms join global networks with the goal and the aspiration of receiving as much business as possible. No? So for most of them, this is a kind of unilateral flow of business, and I think it has to work both ways. And for me, the only way of really making it happening is if you are reasonably enough firms in whatever market you are, but with relationships with multinationals and companies that really have talent needs abroad. Otherwise, the cross-border business is just an impossible goal to achieve.
We also had, if I could, we also had situations where there are obvious markets where outbound is going to be more, it's going to happen more often, right? Because I think as Jose is saying, that the smaller markets may not have that much opportunity for outbound referrals, and so there's going to be some hub situations, the naturals like the Germanys, the the UK as the United States, where there's going to be potentially a lot of outbound as well. And so that kind of outbound inbound balance is interesting. So I think a lot of those smaller firms, they have to kind of set their expectations, right, in terms of what are they going to achieve and how they achieve it. So.
Yeah, but even in those big markets, right, if you have whatever market, US, UK, Germany, France, whatever, if the member firm is it's a purely domestic, it will be very difficult for that firm to export, and therefore will generate some frustration in the rest of the members expecting to receive inbound business, and that would be difficult to achieve because of the local positioning of whatever firm, and regardless of the size of the market. It's very true that big markets like US, Germany, France, theoretically, they are capable of exporting and sending more business abroad. But again, for me, the main issue is the positioning of the member in a given country.
Yeah, and sector too. I think that impacts that a lot as well.
Yeah, both and sector.
Yeah.
So I think what you're both saying really is that clearly it's fundamental, and I think this is a challenge that existing networks have, and a lot of these networks are 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, is getting that right balance in the first place, and getting those right, I mean, I guess you're not going to join a network unless you're at least somewhat internationally minded, but it's having that, I think you're saying, Jose, that kind of right appetite for international work and having that international experience already to some degree.
Yeah. But also, I think it very much relies on each one of the member firms. I mean, if you just join a network expecting to receive business, but you yourself, you're not really driving and expanding that position in your local market in order also to help other members in the network with your business that you can export, at the end there is a clear gap of your expectations and the reality that you may be facing. Again, based on my experience, I think this has to be a win-win situation, and therefore, any member firm has also to do some efforts in order to try to gain international or multinational customers in their respective market. Otherwise, would be good just to be an inbound country, but your responsibilities and also the counter value that you may also provide to the network needs to be somehow balanced. Otherwise, the situation will not last forever, and in my experience, that will create a lot of tension and frustration, and definitely a lot of problems. But it very much depends on which one are your expectations and the main reasons why you join a global network. And for me, that is really the joining process. For me, is really one of the key issues and the most sensible processes that both sides, the network and the individual firm, definitely need to make sure and to ensure throughout the process that they are the right firm for the right network, and that expectations on both sides definitely are equally balanced. Otherwise, it may be just good to be in, but will not last forever, and definitely will bring a lot of problems, tensions, and as well as frustration for both sides.
Well, that makes good sense. And you've both been very senior figures. Well, obviously, Jose, you were global CEO. You couldn't be much more senior, but Amrop and Boyden respectively. I mean, maybe a question to Gray first, if I may. Gray, I mean, what can you do at the centre of the network? What can the network do to encourage cross-border cooperation? And maybe that T word that was used by a couple of people in advance of this session, the word trust. What can you do to kind of engender that trust and collaboration between members and maximize the opportunities between countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of strategies there. I mean, it's interesting because I think, in the recent past, the networks often function, I like to call it a coffee clutch, right? They kind of get together on web meetings once a month or once a quarter. They'd go to world meetings or regional meetings or that type of thing. And I think that really has transitioned over the last maybe 8 or 10 years, where they've become much more formalized in how they operate, right? So from things like key account management programs, preferred provider agreements within large multinationals and global organizations, but also from practice group standpoint as well, developing those practice groups to actually have very clear, well-articulated, well strategized go-to-market approaches, right? And ways to go to market together so that you can take out pieces of that practice group and put teams together to target, right? And they can target multinationals that, operate maybe in France and Southeast Asia together, or however that might work. But really work through that partnership. Building that trust is a tough one, because it's like anything. You kind of have to get to know somebody, right? And kind of get into who they are and what makes them tick, right? So trust is something that's earned over time through behaviors, and it's really easy to break that trust down quickly, right? Where it takes a long time to build that trust up. And if the practice group is functioning well, then those relationships can start to generate, whether they, have events or meetings within a global world meeting or other ways to develop that kind of camaraderie. And knowledge transfer, I think, is very, very important within the practice group environment. Taking, people who have just extreme expertise in, let's say, automotive or something like that, or specific areas of the automotive industry, and transferring that knowledge across the practice group and across the firm as well. So.
Okay, thank you. And Jose, same question to you, really. What can you do? What can you do from the centre to encourage and improve the cross-border relationships?
Well, definitely, as Gray mentioned, any support from Central Point is very much helpful, like those key accounts and some kind of support. Practices, definitely, they work. They are a very useful tool. I would say that also, when you compare many of the existing networks, at the end of the day, they all claim to be more or less similar in terms of global presence, market expertise, sectorial knowledge, treating or dealing with the customers in a very close and personalized way. So I would say that for me, the issue is how you really differentiate yourselves from others and what kind of treatment and service you can provide. So from that point of view, having a real expertise in a given sector that you can convince whatever customer that you can provide them a global service, I would say that is really important. And from that perspective, the practices, I think, are a very important tool. And in addition to that, I would say that creating thought leadership and food for thought, I think, is also very important, that you can really talk to customers knowing their industry and really proving to them that you are an expert. Obviously, not as much as they are because they are the customer. But I would say that defining some key elements in order to differentiate and to position yourself differently compared to the rest of the competitors, I would say that is really important, and I think it works. But in addition to that, for me, the most important issue would be the personal commitment and the personal attitude of the individuals belonging to the firms, and in addition to the network. I've met many professionals that they were happy enough with their local positioning. They were not really chasing and aiming to become global or international, and therefore, no matter how many support and services you provide from the certain point, it will not work. It doesn't matter how much you invest and how much develop. So at the end of the day, for me, it's also a question is how to promote that individual or promote at individual level the appetite for really positioning as a global or at least international provider. And I would say that in addition to practices, key accounts, and so on, for me, the issue is how to seed, how to infect, properly said, the virus of really becoming global and international and being able at an individual level, bring into the conversation with your customer the capabilities and the possibility of really serving them in a global level rather than just purely domestic. No? So I would say that having central services are very important. Definitely that helps. But at the end of the day, if you are not, you as an individual, you are not convinced about really providing and offering a global international service to your customers, nothing will work. And no matter how much you invest centrally or regionally or domestically, nothing will happen. So for me, the individual attitude is really, for me, the key driver in order to become global and to provoke the cross-border business both ways, inbound and outbound.
I think that's really true because that participation is critical. I mean, we were talking about this the other day is you get out of it what you put into it, right? And if you're committed and you kind of absorb everything about, say, an AMROP or a Boyden or any other network and the platform and and the brand and all of that, and you really kind of commit to that and live that, then that trust also builds quite, I think, faster as well.
Yeah, and that's that whole piece about commitment and personality. It's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because you're often dealing with 30 or 40 or 50 firms from different cultures around the world, from different backgrounds, and most networks are collections of independent search firms, under one brand or under two brands, sub brands. So yeah, how do you? Yeah, I mean, I think what you'll seem to be saying, Jose, quite rightly, I think, is that it's about finding those personal motivations, making sure those motivations are right in the first place. But is there anything you can do you think, to encourage a joined up culture, and then this kind of then links onto brand as well, doesn't it? In terms of, you've got three levels of brand, I suppose. You've got personal brands, you've got your individual firm's brand, and then you've got the brand of the network as well.
Yeah. But even I may sound brutal, but I think that at the end of the day, even when the brand matters, no doubt, and please don't get me wrong, but I think regarding the cross-border business, at the end of the day, the brand comes to a second level, because it depends very much in your expertise, your relationship with the local customer, as well as the capability, by the way, as Gray was saying, in the trust of your partners in whatever country the customer may have their needs, to really serve them properly. So, of course, the brand in some cases may be a good argument to use with global coverage and so on. But again, at the end of the day, if you are not able and capable of demonstrating to your customers that you have the knowledge of really delivering properly in whatever country, I would say that that will not work. So the brand for me, while being important, again, don't get me wrong, but I would say the attitude and commitment and the personal positioning and even appetite for really developing that kind of business is really the key issue that you need to address. That's why, coming back to my previous point, in the joining process, I think that the due diligence for both sides has to be really very deep, depending again in the goals or the reasons why you are joining the global network, as well as, by the way, and here comes many mistakes that are also observed from the network point of view. It's not just about bringing firm just to put flags in a map. It's really to try to find the right firm fitting your culture, your values, and your goals in whatever country, regardless of the size of that country, by the way. So if you write the wrong choose, nothing will work, nothing will happen, and the cross-border business becomes the 1 million question that nobody's going to answer ever, because you don't have the right tools, neither centrally nor locally, in order to achieve that goal. And that, by the way, in my experience, again, is one of the biggest, if not the most important reason why a local or a firm is aiming to join a global network. That the considerations and the analysis and diagnosis of the process sometimes is really what some years later or some months later will take to failure for both sides. By the way, costing a lot of time, a big investment in terms of money, resources, and especially frustration, that I think it can be easily avoided if you do the proper due diligence from the very beginning, again, from the network point of view, as well as from the member firm point of view.
I wonder, Tim, if I could ask a question of Jose as well here, because it's really interesting what you're saying to me. How did you evaluate people, either individuals or teams coming in? I mean, we at Boyden, we had a very specific kind of articulation of what we were looking for, and what that personality profiles might be like. Did you have similar kind of approaches at Amrop?
Well, I think the process was as deep and as intense as possible. Obviously, it was not just one man decision; it was a process itself, with a lot of people and even committees intervening, trying to dig as much as possible in the culture, the structure, and even the succession at the firm, the positioning, the fees, the kind of customers. So there were many elements that we tried to consider, but at the end of the day, you never have the 100% of making sure that the one joining is the right firm or the right individuals. But definitely, the more you ask and the more you dig into the culture and the organization, the more probabilities you have
And you
choose the right one.
and you would know.
Perhaps, by the way, saying no to a firm or to a network may be painful, but I think maybe the best investment, depending on the existing positioning, whether they have some other non-executive search business, in some cases even if they have contingency business. I mean, so there are elements that can really give you a lot of information to figure out how it works and how it may work in the future, because this is supposed to be like a marriage, no? Happily married for forever and ever, having a lot of kids, meaning having a lot of business, and therefore you really make sure that you are marrying the right couple.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Thank you. Yeah, fascinating. And just kind of moving on to the next topic. It's all kind of related, but what do you feel? What else besides the kind of cross-border activities and benefits? What else do you think networks can or should provide to its members?
For me, the most intangible and the most valuable aspect would be the what I call the best practices. And best practices can be really applied to many issues. Can be applied internally in terms of how you organize and you structure the company for compensation, for recognition, for promotion of the consultants. I mean, can be really related to any single aspect of any firm, domestically or internally speaking. No? But best practices also apply to how you approach the market, how you position, which one is your brand image in a given country, how do you relate to others, how you try to gain business, or the business development practices. So I would say that in my experience again, how you can benefit from learning from others, obviously creating the atmosphere to really share and to really benefit from others. I would say that is really, if any, for me the second most important reason why to join a network, because you can always learn from others, regardless of the topic, again, internally or externally. And I have to say that in my experience, I've also learned many things from my ex-partners and from people doing whatever activity in a market, regardless again of the industry, the size of the market. But definitely there are always good things to learn that you can adjust, that you can try to implement and to bring to your own home country. And for me, as a big topic, I would say that the best practices is definitely something that is a very intangible aspect that you can really benefit from joining a global network. No? But also that requires, and we come back again to the same point, it requires a lot of time, investment, joining better practices or joining, global practices, joining regional meetings, global general assembly, calling your partners. So it definitely takes some time, but I think it really pays at the end of the day, because you can really learn many interesting things of how things are done in other markets, even within the same industry, or new products, or what is that your competitor is doing in other markets. So you can also prevent such a damage, or you can also forecast a different activity. So as a summary, I would say that best practices, sharing and learning, definitely something that you can really benefit enormously when joining a global network.
And I think that kind of knowledge transfer and that experience transfer is a very hard thing to do at times too. I mean, it happens naturally when you're in person or in a practice group meeting or those types of things, but that can be a difficult challenge. And so kind of, communication streams are very important in the network. Whatever those communication streams are, whether they're weekly, or monthly practice group meetings or world meetings or regional meetings or whatever those are. But that interaction and that continued kind of conversation, and that, because you're right. I mean, everybody can learn at any time about anything. And there's a lot of experience, in these firms, people with just vast amounts of experience, and whether it's in sector or whether it's best practice and execution or whatever that is. That transfer, I think, is really critically important. And it's one of the key benefits of a network. So,
yeah, and I think, speaking from my own personal experience, the last 3 years, and I'd say even more so the last 6 months, I think things are sort of accelerating in terms of search firms wanting to know what other search firms are doing. I think partly because, you know, smaller firms, and I'm talking, when I say smaller firms, I'm talking all firms outside the big five, are, you know, being a lot more flexible and a lot more agile with their fee structures. They're looking at ancillary sort of non-search services such as interim, coaching and assessment. And, you know, if they were doing that 10 years ago or 15 years ago, they're now bringing them more in-house. And that kind of learning from others, that, I mean, I'm speaking to so many search firm leaders who are, you know, incredibly curious about what others are doing and how they're doing it and what good looks like, what great looks like. So I guess that is an advantage of a network. And then to your point, Gray, I suppose it depends how those communications, obviously you can, you know, as Jose says, you can, you know, with the right spirit and the right individuals there, you can communicate and you know, learn from each other at will. But if those communication streams are set up, those processes are set up, I guess it's only going to be easier. I mean, just on that kind of non-search, what I'd call sort of ancillary services, such as coaching and assessment, organizational consulting. I don't know if either of you have seen that in action between countries in terms of country A using country B's services or anything like that. I don't know if that's something that you think works or doesn't work. I'd be kind of interested to know from you, Gray, first, if that's okay.
Sure. I mean, we, you know, I think, you know, setting up those, what I used to call closely aligned ancillary services, you know, any of the leadership consulting types of services, I think that can happen efficiently. We did do that cross-border. You know, we would take experts from Milan and put them in a project in Germany if that was appropriate, or, you know, Australia into Hong Kong, you know, that type of thing. I think that kind of shared service within the network can work quite well. Absolutely. And they can be tremendous profit centers and huge growth opportunities, I think, right now as well. I think that the economics of search is so well understood, but within the search industry, the economics of consulting is kind of less understood. And it can be massively helpful and massively profitable as well for the organization, but also as kind of a give and take as well, or a push me pull you, we would say maybe in the United States, because the leadership consulting can open doors for search opportunities, as well as search opportunities opening the doors for leadership consulting solutions as well. So I think that can be a tremendous value. And of course, I don't know what Jose you were seeing, but we were seeing a lot more pressure continually at Boyden from clients for that type of expertise further in our relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I would say that unfortunately, executive search is a more kind of transactional and operational kind of business. Meanwhile, perhaps the leadership assessment and the non-search business is more ongoing. And definitely, you always have talent needs at the company level, while not always those talent needs are converted into executive search needs. So, in my view, the trend definitely is very clear, and customers are trying to once they trust you, and once you have been working with them, if possible, they would like you to cover as many services as possible. Of course, with some competitors, they are not going to grant you absolutely 100% of the business. But I would say that the trend very clearly is that if you can provide us something else in addition to executive search, we really appreciate. And there are, as you said, very clear synergies, because whether you enter by one door or the other, at the end of the day, you really go into the organizational knowledge, and definitely you can really benefit yourself if you have at least a reasonable number of services related talent, whether they are search, consulting, coaching, assessment, whatever. And definitely, I would say this trend will continue in the future, not only because some players are already doing and making acquisitions in order to expand their businesses and services, but I would say because also the customers are in demand of once they know you and once they offer you their trust, I would say they are really willing to help them with more services and coming closer to their culture and to provide them with as many things as possible, understanding that you cannot be highly specialized in every single piece of the chain. But definitely dealing with the 2-3 core and essential pieces of the talent process, I would say, is very much appreciated. And I think it's out, for me at least, it's very clear there is a trend already in the market, and that will continue to strengthen in the near future.
Yeah.
Okay. No, thank you.
I'd also just one other thought there too. I also think that's the brand actually becomes more important, right? There as well as executive search firms expand their solutions into the marketplace, because it expands the competitive set beyond the traditional executive search firm, right? To other leadership consulting organizations, assessment organizations, those types of companies. So the brand actually becomes more important, which is, I think, one of the reasons we're starting to see over the last 8-9 years, search firms paying more attention to what their brand is and what role it plays, and also what role how it interacts with the professional brand of the search partner as well. So I think that becomes more important because the market is expanding.
I was going to ask you about that, Gray, in terms of brand, but also, in relation to content, as you're defining who you are, I mean, how much attention should be paid between the member firm, the partner firm, if you like, and the network itself? And how does that? It's a difficult question, so sorry, apologies.
It's a loaded question.
How can that be managed?
It's a tough one to answer because I spent most of my career in B2B branding, which is very easy. You work with a Caterpillar or a Boeing or that type of thing, and it's fairly easy. I shouldn't say it's easy because it's really, really difficult, but you have a single corporate brand, and that really is everything, to the organization, right? But in professional services, it's really, really different because you have multiple brands to deal with. Jose was talking about that before. Is you may have a local brand, and then you may have the company brand or the network brand. How do those two things work together? And then most importantly, you have the partner brand, because this is a relationship business. So the brand on the street, which is the person, the partner, is probably really the most important and most long lasting of those as well, right? So I always think in professional services that, unlike a Caterpillar or even in the CPG environment, like a Coca-Cola or that type of thing, is that the company brand, the corporate brand, if you will, in the case of Boyden, really what role does it play? It plays the role really of being kind of an envelope for storing experiences, right? And being kind of a door opener as well. I used to say, okay, well, the Boyden brand really is kind of a door opener, where the partner brand is the door closer, right? And that's how that works. But that door closer partner brand, that goes on for a while, where the corporate brand and professional services kind of disappears after time. And that's true in pretty much all professional services. I mean, certainly the McKinsey brand is very powerful, and Accenture and those types of things. But it really is just a platform for execution and trust and delivering on all of the promise that you put into the marketplace as to why you're in business. So, to me.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
And I think, just to go back to something Jose said before, which I think is really, really important, is so when you define that brand, what do you do with it, right? And again, this is a professional services environment, right? And Jose and Tim, you both have extreme expertise in your areas, and what clients want, or potential clients want, is they want you to tease them a little bit with giving some of that knowledge to them through content and thought leadership, right? And sharing that. I think that's critically important. We had pretty intensive programs that were practice group focused, or regional focused even, in Boyden, that were generating content constantly and pushing that content out through all of the channels that we all know about, to share that expertise and to tell people something that they didn't know. I often found that you tell people something they do know and they go, oh yeah, you're right, because maybe you just defined it better for them, that type of thing. But sharing that content, we call it a content marketing strategy. And I think it's very, very important within organizations, within practice groups, within organizations, within regional environments of networks as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Gray. So this question is just a question that I'm asked a lot by search firm owners of all sizes, except for the big five firms. And 98% of search firms are firms of under 10 people, and that's mostly the types of firms that are members of networks, although some of the members of Boyden and AmRop and a few others are more than 10 people, but they're relatively small independent search firms, I guess, at the end of the day. And with the kind of increased competition, but also being a very sort of competitive but very kind of buoyant market, it seems that the smaller firms are edging into the Shreks, the big fives market in terms of taking some of that market share. But I still get asked a lot, what can we do to compete more with the Shreks? What can we do to take more market share from the Shreks? And I guess maybe the answer to that is really to do with the independent search firm members. But I wonder if Jose, you could let us know what you think a network can do as well as the actual individual member firms, what a network can do to kind of compete more against the big five firms.
Another not so easy question, but I think, of course, the integrated and the Shreks have many benefits compared to other players in the market, but they also have some weaknesses. And I think that at the end of the day, obviously the brand may be a good flag for some companies to use, and perhaps they may prefer go to the safe zone using one of those big names because they are one of the biggest names, and therefore the decision is very easy to take. But other than that, I would say that there is many companies in any market that first of all, perhaps sometimes they cannot afford the fees of those big firms. Second, they are looking for a different kind of treatment and service, and also they want to rely more on a kind of a personal relationship, as well as a different kind of approach to the search, perhaps not so rigid and not following the coffee for all kind of a structure. So from that point of view, of course, they take a significant portion of the market, but it's my experience that the market is infinitive. You can really attack and cover many customers in your local market, and perhaps the kind of service that you offer with a more flexible approach in terms of fees, invoicing, as well as we said before, definitely you need to prove that you are an expert in that industry or in that function, and therefore you can really cover. But I would say that how to take a market share from those big names, I would say with professionalism, dedication, and a good approach to the market and to the customers, proving to them that you can really deliver according to the expectations that they have. I've been talking with many customers saying that, Jose, I would love to give you the search, but I have regional policies or I have head office policies, and definitely they are not satisfied with the treatment, with the conditions, with the fees, with many other things. So I would say that just taking the other look at the game, I would say that offering a very different scenario in how to deal with the search from all perspectives, fees, structure, invoicing, approach, dedication, and really proving that you as an individual, you're going to be on top of the search. Perhaps maybe the key issues to claim and to prove to those customers that you can really provide an even better service to them. In those cases where, again, the managing director, the human resources head, or whoever is not really coupling, and he or she has to deliver to those names because they have a global agreement. But if that agreement doesn't exist, I think that being local and providing a very good service at the end of the day really pays, and you can really prove. And I've been there many times, not only in Spain, by the way, but in other markets, and you can really defeat them because of the treatment and how you approach their business locally in a given market.
I would add to that too, and I agree with everything, Jose, there. But I've had I've had probably 3 conversations just in the last 2 weeks with small boutiques, and it was funny because they all said that, well, I just want to search from one of the Shreks. I'm not going to name the one I'm thinking about in my head. I just took that search away from them, and I was like, well, why? And the woman said to me, because it just sat on their desk for 4 months, 5 months, and nothing happened with it. And the client got frustrated and came to her. And the reason was she has such intense subject matter expertise in that particular space that she could take it away. So I've heard that consistently in a number of small boutique firms, that they're able to drill down into kind of the micro components of, of that particular job opportunity or that search opportunity, where the larger firms, the Shreks, yeah, they've got great expertise. I mean, obviously, right? But that expertise is broader, and the expertise actually resides at the researcher level, not so much at the partner level. And, in the boutiques, what I love about the boutiques and the networks is because they are very localized and very sector focused, and that expertise resides at the partner level, not as much as, within the Shreks. It's really the senior associates that know more about the nuances of some of those, say, a manufacturing organization or something like that. So I think there's a huge opportunity there for, smaller firms to compete against the Shreks on kind of hyper focus as well.
I think that's true. I think that's really fascinating. I mean, there aren't many statistics in this industry, but it really seems that more and more firms are taking at least some market share from the Shreks. I mean, in terms of the Shreks, but also, some of the larger medium-sized firms like ZRG, if you're European, and some of those other kind of larger firms that are global, but they're completely integrated. I mean, what we're hearing is that there's at least 3 networks, which I won't name, but there's at least 3 networks we're speaking to, probably 4 or 5 actually, thinking about it, who are thinking about integrating in terms of structurally integrating over time towards an exit plan, partly to realize value as a group, with the kind of multiple being a lot higher, but just integrating because they also come up against the challenge from some global clients who want to do business with them, but say at the end of the day, you're just a network. I don't know, Jose, if you've kind of come across that, and what your thoughts are really, whether, I mean, it's again not an easy question, but whether integration is the right solution or not.
Well, to be honest, in my more than 20 years of experience, none of my international customers have ever asked me whether I belong to an integrated company, to a network, partnership, whatever. I think really, and customers already know about the differences, and I would say what they are really interested in is basically the kind of service, and if you can really help them to solve their problem. At the end of the day, what really goes below the water, they don't care. They can understand the differences, and perhaps they may have some, or they may have some preferences in their model. But I would say, if you are a service provider, just give me the service for the price that we have agreed, as good as possible, as quickly as possible, and help me to fix the problem. Whether integration, partnership, networks, I don't think really that's the name of the game. And again, never in my experience a customer has really mattered whether we were one model or the other, or if they are a strong believer in a kind of organization above others in order to really help them to solve their talent problems. Yeah. Never ever in my experience.
So sorry, Greg, please.
I was just going to say quickly, we actually would get it on occasion, but it was coming from the Shreks. So, they're just a network, So,
Okay. Yeah. So there'd be no question about the consistency of service. They would put it to you, they would give you the opportunity, the assignment, because you'd convince them. And then obviously, as you're saying, Jose, then it's just down to as ever, is doing giving a good service. And as long as you can give a good service across the countries, I suppose, I mean, this is just what I've heard from a few networks more recently, is that their clients, some of their clients, not all of their clients, were just worried about the consistency of service across the different countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in addition to that, in many cases, if you have a customer that has some needs abroad, they are really trusting you, Peter, Paul, Mary, Jose. So at the end of the day, I think it really depends very much on your capability of coordinating with your partners and proving to them that you can really take charge of their problems, not only domestically, but also internationally. Because at the end, they will not be calling your partner in a given country. They will be calling you and asking you for the delivery in due terms, as you promised to deliver. And therefore, at the end, we come back to the trust at the individual level to really make the difference compared to other structural issues or price issues or expertise issues. Of course, giving a common ground and a minimum level of service to your customer. So it very much, at the end of the day, relies in the individual.
Yeah.
Okay, no, great, thank you. We've covered a lot. I'm just going to go to the last question, which again is probably not an easy one, and we're not going to sort of solve the world of networks in 8 minutes or 9 minutes, how long we've got left. But I guess, we're having more and more conversations with networks, at the center, the headquarters of the networks, touching on all these challenges that we've discussed, touching on all these issues that we've discussed. The executive search firms, particularly in Europe and the Americas, have done better in 2021 than ever before historically, and 2022 looks like it could be an even better year. But I guess search firms, independent search firms and networks are realizing that that they need to future-proof, and competition's sharpening up, and the market can't continue like this forever. So probably there's various challenges there as a sort of smaller search firm in terms of potentially in terms of scale and strategy. But what do you think is the right solution for a network to future-proof itself, through the 2020s? It's a really, really big question. But I don't know if Jose, you want to try and have a go at answering that, if you could, please.
Thanks again, Tim.
Good luck.
Well, definitely these are very challenging times from many perspectives, and unfortunately we have had terrible issues with the COVID, and now with the war in Ukraine. So I would say that those challenges will definitely have an impact or have already had an impact in our activity, in our business. In any case, I am an optimistic by nature, and I think things are definitely becoming to be much better. And that is for sure bringing to the executive search industry many more opportunities. Probably related, and in addition to that, we have something that it's already taking place for many years. Just to summarize, let's call it digitalization and transformation of the businesses. So I would say that the challenges that we are facing are tremendous. They are expanding on a very quick speed every single day, and that is bringing a lot of pressure to us, to our business, and to our industry. And I think we need really to adapt. In any case, I am positive, because no matter how much the artificial intelligence and all the technical tools advance, and how many tools they offer to us, but I would say this is a business for the people, done by people, and therefore, until there are robots that can really take us away completely, I would say that the industry is going to flourish. But definitely we have many challenges in terms of how to really improve our processes, how to apply the technology that is outside in the market to bring it to our industry, to improve our services. The diversification, as I said before, if we are really going to remain as exclusive as executive search provider, or we need to expand our offering in order to help our customers to serve their talent needs. Everything together, I am positive. I think the executive search industry is going to continue to grow Obviously, we may have some bumps, no doubt, because we are not completely away from what's going on in the society and in the economy. But I would say that the challenges are even bigger and many more than before. But I am absolutely convinced that the executive search industry, as a concept, will remain and will become even stronger in these turbulent periods. But of course, we need to take some actions. We cannot just remain as we have been. The comfort zone is very good, but only for the holidays. Definitely, we need to improve, to change, to think new ways of approaching customers, delivering services. The new generations, definitely, they expect also different things from us. When you look at the positions that are being posted, you really understand how businesses are evolving, and we need to adapt to those. So challenges, I would say, are the same that for any other industry, but I think we are also in the core part because we are talking to people, about people, and therefore the human being and the human essence, I think, will still remain for many more years. But definitely the challenge on our side is how to adapt and how to respond to the needs that our customers, our candidates, by the way, we cannot forget them, are definitely having and expecting from us. And throughout, I wouldn't say the process, but I would say the concept of being human and aspiring to have a better future as individuals and as professionals. That for me is positive. I am optimistic, but definitely a lot of homework to do for the next years.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think there's always those issues too, and I mean, technology is going at the speed of light right now. I mean, what impact is AI going to have on executive search and all those things? But I think when you think about future proofing, you got to take almost go back to the basics in some way, because I mean, Tim, you and I have talked about this a fair amount, and we see it quite a lot, particularly in boutiques, is they're so rightly focused on client support and client management and client development, that they don't think about the business itself, you know, the strategy of the business. They've got the strategy in their head, right? But it's never really articulated and put down on paper so that it can be inculcated across the organization. So I think when you think about future proofing, we need to take a step back and think about what is the business strategy of the firm? What is the brand and what role will it play and what does it mean? Because that's critically important. In my personal view, there is no real differentiator in executive search or in most professional services, to be honest, because the IP of professional search resides in the partners, and those partners they can go anywhere they want, basically, right? So it's you know, differentiators are replicatable, but the brand and the brand performance is very, very important as they move forward. And then you get into things like AI. What role is AI going to play within executive search? And there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on right now in terms of you know candidate screening and candidate qualification and all that type of stuff. And that's going to be a huge challenge to figure out how do we adapt that? How do we integrate that into our processes and into our organization? And you know, I think at the end of the day, I totally agree with Jose, because at the end of the day, even AI will just make us all more profitable, and the business is going to grow. It's going to keep growing. I don't see it going away either.
Thanks so much. We've packed a lot in there. I hope you know we didn't solve the world for executive search networks, but I think hopefully we dented it in a positive way, hopefully, and touched on lots of subjects. So thank you so much, Jose, and thank you, Gray. There were a couple of questions. They weren't directly related to networks, but we will address those. We'll come back to those individuals that asked those questions separately in the next couple of days. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for taking part. There is a lot more to talk about. We know there's lots of challenges out there for all of you, and lots of good work happening out there, lots of successes. You know, it's a great year, hopefully, for you all. But yeah, we've got to look to the future, and that goes for us as well as yourselves. So yeah, if we can help in any way, you want to have a consultation with us, please reach out to me and I'll direct it to the appropriate person. and we can try and help you and have a sort of one-to-one session with you. And yeah, I'd like to just thank you all. We've had a really good turnout, so I just want to thank you all for attending. We will be sending a link so you can share it with colleagues and other people in your firm or other firms that you think you would find this useful. We'll be sending that out in the next few days. And I just want to say thank you again, Gray, and thank you again, Jose, and thank you to the audience for attending.
Thanks very much, Tim.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank
now.
you all.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.